So the preview called this the worst lens of 2022. But is it really though? Let's find out. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Iamtongue, and in today's video, I want to talk about this bad boy right here, the Fujifilm XF 18-120mm F4 PZ LM It's quite a mouthful. I've been using this lens with me everywhere. It's quite the versatile lens to have in my kit because of the focal range that it gives me. 18-120 covers a lot of areas that I am quite satisfied with. And I've been using this lens for the past 3 to 4 months now. It has become my everything lens for when I travel and whenever I'm filming videos. I actually like this lens a lot, and I've been hearing a lot of people say this lens does not perform well like the other Fujifilm lenses out there, and it's not that sharp. Sharpness is not everything. They are right, this lens is not sharp, but once again, sharpness does not tell the whole story of what this lens is capable of. So why don't we just go ahead and start with the first thing that people really want to know about is the image quality. So as always, I do share a lot of sample images that I've took, so you can see for yourself or not this lens is sharp enough for your liking. Like I was saying, I was using this lens while I was traveling throughout Portugal. I traveled to the UK, so I was quite content with the sharpness. Generally, a zoom lens will never be as sharp as a prime lens, so don't be expecting prime lens quality from the 18-120mm f4. Also, don't expect the lens to be as sharp as the 50-140mm f2.8 when the 50-140mm lens costs about $1,600, whereas the power zoom lens costs around $899. The images that I get are decent. It's sharp in the center and it breaks down in the corners. I feel the same as I stopped down my shots to f8 as well. If you guys ever shot with the XF 55-200mm, it sort of reminds me of that lens, the image quality wise. But again, the way I view this lens is that it's a video centric lens first, right? And if you view it as that, then you're going to enjoy this lens a lot more. I watch a lot of Fuji content on my spare time, and the one complaint video creators have with Fujifilm cameras are that their footage just looks way too sharp, way too digital coming out of the camera. And I think it has something to do with Fujifilm just making great lenses that are geared towards photography. Now, we already got a good amount of lenses from Fujifilm that is plenty of sharp when it comes to photography. But what we don't have enough of is a lens that is dedicated to video. What video creators and filmmakers are looking to get out of their footage is like a softer looking image, the cinematic look, something that is not too digital, something that is not too sterile, too clinical, i.e. too sharp. And I find this lens is good with providing the soft look because again, the lens isn't optically sharp like the other XF lenses that Fuji photographers are accustomed to. So the filmmakers that shot with Fujifilm always complain that the XF lens lineup is just too sharp for video. And then Fujifilm makes this power zoom lens right here. You got Fuji photographers complaining that it's not as sharp as other XF lenses out there. And I don't need this lens to be sharp. I don't need my footage to be that sharp. So I am quite happy with the way this lens is. And as for photos, I am satisfied with the sharpness. It's plenty of sharp for my liking. If you're someone that needs sharpness, just be aware that you're not going to find it with this lens right here. Let's move on to the build quality. When I first took this lens out of the box, I was surprised by how light this lens is. Looking at the size of it, I thought this lens would have more weight to it, more heft, more junk in that trunk, more cake, but unfortunately it's not thick with 2 C's. It's surprisingly light for its size, and because of it, it does feel hollow. If you are used to a lens like the 16-55 or the 50-140, you're going to notice a difference in weight. And I do appreciate this lightweight lens because I was walking around London every day for like the past 8 days or so, and in my backpack I had the XH2 and the XH10 and a variety of lenses that I bought to this trip. I walked around 18,000 steps every day. That's an average of 12 to 14 kilometers. So I appreciate that this lens was on the lighter side than the other zoom lenses Fuji offers. My back would have been wrecked if I had the 50-140 on me. I also like the fact that it has weather resistance. You know, traveling around the UK during the winter months where it's generally raining, you're going to need some sort of reassurance that your lens won't crap out on you. And I was shooting with this lens while it was raining and I had no issues, nothing happened. it's all good on that front. This lens also zoom internally, so you won't see the lens barrel extend like you do with the 16-55, and I just love this as well because then I can put this lens on a gimbal and not have to worry about readjusting the balance of the gimbal if I were to zoom in and out like I did with the 16-55. And that should be another indicator that this lens is geared towards the video creators than the photographers. So you also have the zoom rocker right here for if you want a slow and steady consistent zoom. You can also use the regular zoom ring here, but it's not going to give you a smooth look like the zoom rocker would. Power zoom lenses are made for video in mind, and it zooms in very smoothly, and I like that because you can get some interesting shots. Maybe do like a slow zoom on a character's face to intensify a scene, or maybe you can do one of those fast zoom like you see in the shows like The Office or Parks and Recs. On the side of the zoom rocker, you got the zoom/focus toggle button, and you can toggle between them. I keep it on zoom, but if you're shooting on manual focus, just toggle that button to switch over to the focus side, and you can have a smoother control focusing with the zoom rocker. And at the bottom of the zoom focus toggle button, there are two buttons to control your zooming even more, so it just gives you a little bit of extra control to dial in your zoom. Speaking of manual focusing, the issue that I have with this lens is the focusing. This focus by wire, meaning if you try to manual focus, there's no physical stop. When you reach infinity, it'll keep going in circles and it doesn't stop. Also, when I tried manually focusing with this lens, there seems to be a slight delay, and I think this is something to do with the focus by wire, so sometimes I can just overshoot the focus because of it. So it's not as smooth as manual lenses with hard stops, so just keep that in mind. Let's move on to autofocusing. For autofocusing, I find it's more than enough for my video needs. It tracks very well, and it's a great combo paired with my Fujifilm XH2s. When I was filming a couples video with Lisa and her boyfriend, I find it to be more than adequate for my needs. I just told them to run up and down the beach so I can track them, and it did a decent job. As for photos, it's not that bad. It does lose the subject for a quick moment, and I think this is when the subject's far away and then it gets closer to the frame. I find those scenarios to be where the lens struggle the most. Like tracking cars, for example. It does a good job, but there would be a moment where it would lose focus for a second and then it picks back up. I've done this a few times with this lens, and I find with the cars moving so quick, the way it does, it could lose them during the tracking part. For single point autofocusing, I find that this lens is quick and snappy like any other Fujifilm lenses out there. This lens has the updated linear motors inside, so it has to be quick and snappy. Overall, I find the autofocusing on this lens to be more than adequate. It's good. It's better than other lenses that I've tried in the Fujifilm lens lineup. Let's move on to the negatives. Lens stabilization would be nice on this lens, but it's not the end of the world. My XH2s and my XH2 does have IBIS, so I'll be okay with it, but it just sucks for the other Fuji shooters out there with cameras that don't have IBIS in them. And another thing I noticed about this lens is every time I do a zoom, there is an exposure adjustment. As I would zoom into a subject or an object, there would be a slight boost of exposure. I don't know what the heck is going on, but I need to point that out because it's really distracting. Can this be fixed in a firmware update? Some other dude on the internet says that the exposure stepping is not a firmware issue, but it's more of a design flaw of the lens. So if that's the case, I don't like the fact that Fujifilm sold us this lens with this quirk in it, because it shouldn't be there. Another thing I found out is that this lens is parfocal with an asterisk. So if you don't know what parfocal means, the easiest explanation is, so let's just say that you start at 18 millimeters from this lens right here, and the object that you're focusing on is already in focus, right? And as you zoom in on a photography lens, you kind of lose focus when you zoom in. But on a video lens, that's actually a desired look. If you can zoom in and the subject stays in focus, that's what you would want for a lens. And I find with like the 16-55mm f2.8, you have to readjust your focus a lot. But being that this lens, the 18-120, is sort of parfocal, you don't have to readjust. But it stays in focus to a certain focal length. It's not until I get to the tighter focal ranges like the 120 that it would be out of focus again. From there, you're going to have to readjust your focus again. Just a minor quirk, nothing too serious, but I am happy that this lens is parfocal rather than not parfocal. Another thing I wish they did was making this lens with a wider aperture. I did find that the f4 was useless like in low light scenarios. That's the issue that I found when I was using this lens. But then again, if this lens had a wider aperture, then there would be more weight to the lens and then the cost will increase. So there's definitely some compromises when you're picking up this lens. So overall, I enjoy this lens a lot. I find this lens to be very versatile because of the wide variety of focal lengths. Now, being that this is a versatile lens, that means there are compromises when it comes to this lens. Don't expect a $900 lens to perform like a $1,600 lens. We can't have it all, guys, and don't expect that corner to corner sharpness from a video centric lens, because that's not what this lens is made for. But do expect this lens to be sharp in the center for photos. Do expect this lens to be a convenient lens for you, that one-stop shop tool that you need when you're packing light. And do expect that this lens can provide you with great looking footage. The quirks are annoying, but I can work around them. Just like any quirk from any equipment, you just gotta work around those quirks. But I do find the exposure shift very annoying when I did not make any changes to the aperture or the shutter speed. Now this only happens when you zoom in, so I find that very jarring as I review my footage. So Fujifilm, you better fix this in a firmware update, because otherwise, I'm switching to Sony. I'll do it, man. I'll do it. I love the footage that I get out of this lens. The photos have been more than adequate for my travels. I love the shots I've been getting with this lens, and I find that the price you pay for this lens at $899, it's quite good. With all the features that it has, I was expecting this lens to be like around $1,100. So I do find that you're gonna get a lens that is a good bang for your buck for everything that this lens can do. But what are your thoughts? Do you guys agree with the preview that this lens is the worst lens of 2022? I'm curious to know. So why don't you guys let me know in the comment section below, and if you're interested in this lens, I'll leave a link to them in the description as well. And if you guys did find this video helpful, do me a favor, guys, and subscribe to my channel, as it helps me out a whole lot as I'm trying to get on the algorithm's good side. And while you're at it, please like this video. It goes a long way. It doesn't cost you anything for you to just move the mouse over to the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, not thumbs down, thumbs up. This is what it should look like, not this one. This one. I got more Fujifilm content coming your way, guys. So again, make sure to subscribe. And as always, my name is Tongue, and I'll see you in the next video. I love you. Korean heart.